What's going on, everyone? Welcome into episode 3 of the Vulture Row podcast. I'm your host, Joey Bonsanti. I'm joined by Pat Winters and Tony Vegas. We got quite the episode for you guys today. We're going to go over the awesome free agency so far, as rated by Jets Twitter. And then
Thrilling.
we're going to, oh, yeah, just absolutely unbelievable. We'll head into an Antwan Staley interview. Looking forward to that. And then we'll wrap it up with some questions from Twitter. But first, before we start to get into the free agency, how are you guys doing? Pat, how you doing? I'll start with you.
Doing all right. I mean, it hasn't been the most eventful free agency. I think we were expecting a little bit more probably as fans because we're just so used to winning the offseason. But, trying to look at this from a positive approach and a positive lens and, what other choice do we have, right? So,
Tone, how about you?
I'm doing good. It's not the most exciting free agency we've ever had, but the seasons haven't been very exciting for the past 10 some odd years. So, in my mind, maybe them playing the offseason differently is going to, give us a different result on the field. Fingers crossed, we'll see. But right now, it's a snooze fest for sure.
Yeah, it's a good way to sum it up. But I figured what I'd do here is I'll read through who we've signed. I'm pretty sure everyone listening knows, but I just want to give a recap before we give out some quick grades and just brief everything up. All right, so in no order, the Jets have signed so far through this free agent period: Rashad Weaver, who's an edge; Andre Sisco, the safety from Jacksonville; Brandon Stevens, cornerback, who is just getting so much hate. And based on the face value stats, I would pretty much agree with that. Um, Chukuma Okorafor, who I cannot pronounce his name, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. Offensive lineman Isaiah Oliver, who is a current Jet, we re-signed him. Josh Myers, offensive line. Jamin Davis, linebacker. Jay Tufile. Tony, help me out with this one. I can't get
Need to feel it.
Tufile. Thank you. D lineman. Byron Cowart, D lineman. Stone Smart, the tight end out in LA. Jamie Sherwood, obviously, and Justin Fields, our new quarterback one. So I guess let's start with Pat on the left side here. Pat, if you want to just give a little debrief of what you've been thinking about the free agency and overall grade so far, that would be much appreciated.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a B minus, and I'm gonna say that because there are some signings that I do like. Here, look. At the end of the day, this whole thing was predicated on, we went all in with Aaron Rodgers, right? We went all in on the past couple of years, and we knew we were going to be at this point where we were going to have to feel the effects of that. The unfortunate part was we were expecting much better results, and now to kind of maybe ease this pain that we're going to be going through now with these signings. But that being said, I do like some of them, specifically the O-line. They got guys with starting experience, a lot of starting experience. Okorafor started 55 games, I believe, at right tackle, or maybe Myers started 55 games. But these guys both have a lot of starting experience, so that's going to be better than rolling out Xavier Newman and Carter Warren, who just hasn't performed, and Max Mitchell, who just guys who haven't performed, and in the inevitable position when the O-line goes down at some point, right? So, and I also just like that they're banking on high upside guys in terms of traits that Aaron Glenn is going to bank on coaching. So it's a different approach than maybe we anticipated. I think that one Jets drive would have pitchforks outside right now if we didn't have Justin Fields. That's the downside. So we have something to hold on to in that regard. But I'm just really trying to stay positive and give Aaron Glenn the benefit of the doubt until he gives me and Moochie. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt until we have a reason not to.
Tone?
Yeah. So Pat took he gave a B minus. That would be my grade. I'll go C plus. Just because the team hasn't gotten that much better. Not a lot of talent went out the door, so it's not like we're, the floodgates are open and it's a complete shit show. But it really feels as though they're operating this offseason as guys with 5-year leashes that just got hired, and that is the case, right? I mean, they're in really no rush to succeed as fast as possible. I understand with these press conferences, they get up there, they say all this rah-rah stuff. Hey, we want to win now. We're the New York Jets, stuff like that. But, another thing that they kind of emphasized was sustained success. And, it doesn't feel like it was an all-in past couple years because the results were shit, right? There's no arguing that. It blew up in our faces. And because of that, it feels strange that we have no cap space. We can't make a bunch of moves. I get it. We have a little bit of money to work with, but if it's year one in these guys' tenures, they don't want to blow all their financial flexibility in year one. It makes no sense, right? They're thinking about years 2, 3, 4. They're not thinking about year one. They haven't been Jets fans for 27 years like myself and like you guys. So I just would want to preach patience. I understand seeing the Patriots sign all these guys. It's fun. It's a lot more fun as a fans to see big name guys come to your team. But at the end of the day, we're not in that spot right now, and I don't mind them signing depth pieces. I mean, at the end of the day, they got a starting quarterback for. I understand on paper it was $20 million per year, but that's cheap for a starting quarterback in the NFL. Probably the cheapest starting quarterback in the NFL post rookie contract, right? Either him or Daniel Jones. And they got some secondary help. And, I would have liked to see a little bit more on the defensive line, which is why, I'm giving it that C plus. And I think the number one thing that I'm kind of concerned with is that they're projecting a little bit at pick 7. They can't roll into 2025 with Okorafor as their starting right tackle. I think there's going to need to be either a signing or, obviously Membu, we've been talking about him a lot. I feel as though you don't want to go into the draft projecting what you're doing, because that's how you end up getting Broderick Jones, right? And I understand Broderick Jones isn't that good and we end up with Will McDonald, but you want to go in with options. You don't want to be pigeonholed into a pick, thus the C plus grade. It's not a home run, but there are some bright spots, and next year probably isn't going to be as fun as a lot of people thought it would be.
Well, yeah,
You brought up something interesting that, the Patriots fans, the Patriots fans, right? Like, we've been that team the past 14
No
years,
kidding.
right? Spending and spending and spending, and it's done nothing but bad for us. So we have to just kind of be on this side of the coin for a little bit and deal with it. And that's just the reality of it. And I'm just really worried about the wide receiver room as it stands. But another thing we have to remember, too, is that we are still 1 week into free agency, right? And there's still so many more moves to be made. They're not going to be big moves, but they have we can't judge this team. We're recording as of Thursday night, and free agency started, really on Monday, technically the new league year yesterday. But there's still a lot of moves to be made.
Absolutely. No, it's a really good point. You look back on like the McCagnon days when he would just spend like a drunken sailor, and look at where that got us. Maybe it's fun to get like the expensive players, but at the end of the day, from a cap standpoint and from a team building standpoint, it's not always the best thing to do, especially when you're only working with, $65 to $70 million in cap space. I want to go back to something that Tony said earlier about letting talent, not like there wasn't much talent walking out the door. What do you mean? What do you mean no talent? Kinlaw just got paid, man. I'm just kidding.
$15 million. It's insanity, dude. Lance Newmark really running the show over there, I guess. We dodged a bullet.
I think he's been the talk of. I think he's been the talk of literally every Jets podcast, Twitter. Like, people are just in awe that he got that money. I mean, if you watched last year, he was horrible. But listen, God bless him. Made his money. He came here. I'm happy for him. Never going to be mad at somebody going to make their money. Thanks for the comp pick. And
so he got paid. Yeah, exactly. He got paid that fat contract. That's a good thing for us, right? And I understand a lot of people are going to be like, why is Darren Muji throwing away the whole offseason for a 4th round comp pick? At the end of the day, next offseason, we're going to be most likely in the market for a quarterback in the draft, and every pick matters at that point. So I don't think the comp pick is like this non-factor. I do think they're taking that a little bit into account rather.
All right, I'm not going to hold us up too long because I want to get to the Staley interview. I do want to give my grade, though. I was going to say B-. I really do think B- or C+ is the right answer. You could probably argue C. I would say B- just based on where the team stands, pre-free agency and how much money they were set to spend. Like, I wasn't really expecting them to go out and get like a top-tier safety. I was expecting them to get more like frontline D-line help. Like, I thought Levi when I mentioned that on the Staley interview, like from the Lions, who signed a 1-year, $5.5 million deal, like I thought that could have happened. But like Antwan says, I'm kind of foreshadowing here. What he says is it takes 2 to tango. Like it does. You don't know any of these guys' situations. They could be looking at where they want to live, where they want to raise a family, contenders. You got to take all this stuff into account. And right now, like the Jets may not be the most attractive destination, with no answer at quarterback, rookie head coach, rookie GM. So I would just keep that in mind as you look at the landscape of this free agency. But I'll shut up now. And do you, Pat? You're itching to say something.
I just want to tell
Do you have
fans
something?
too that like yeah, like let's not lose sleep. Like you bring up like Tim Patrick, right? I know he put up like the Twitter picture and stuff like that. Like I'm not losing sleep if Tim Patrick doesn't sign here. Like I'd rather not dish out a bad contract. Like they are going to figure the situation out. They're going to get value signings. This receiver room is going to get figured out. I'm worried about it, but I'm also not rushing to sign Tim Patrick to a wide receiver 2 to 3 money because we're that desperate at the moment. So just patience is my point.
And it's hard, for a lot of fans, it is hard to be patient after not making the playoffs for 15 years. And we all get it. Like it's tough, but you would just because we haven't made the playoffs for 15 years doesn't mean you go out, you spend a bunch of money and you try to, win it 1 year at a time. They want to build a sustained winner. And I think that's something that they got to keep in their mind as they move forward and they approach free agency and they approach the first off season that they have in their job. So I'll shut up now. I'm going to throw it to Daily News, Antwan Staley. He was a really good interview. I'll throw it there. Enjoy, guys. Now joined by Jets beat writer Antwan Staley of the Daily News. Antwan, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's been a super busy week, but how you doing? I asked Connor this last week. Are you all caught up on sleep with the busy week?
I, I am not, but never really caught up on sleep anyway. So
Thanks again for joining us. I'll hop right into the questions. So the Jets' overall narrative so far in free agency has been depth pieces and then low risk, high reward signings. I want to start with Justin Fields, though. We kind of know what to expect with the style of play that we'll get with him within this Jets offense. But from a schematic standpoint, like what do you expect the offense to look like, and what do you think it's going to be built around mostly?
I think it's going to be like a ground game there. I think it's going to be kind of similar to what you saw in Detroit, but not necessarily exactly like it. Obviously, I think Jared Goff is a much more polished passer than Justin Fields. But I think with Fields though, he has improved a little bit as a passer. It's definitely, especially going from his rookie year with Chicago, where I think he completed like 55% of his passes or somewhere like that. Now, I think he's a limited bit of work in Pittsburgh. He was like a little bit over 60, so still not elite, but at the same time, I definitely think good enough where you can put the ball in the air. Though, but I think they're going to really lean heavily on their running game, which I think a lot of Brees Hall, obviously using Justin Fields and his legs and using that skill set too. And you also do have talented running backs in Braylon Allen and also Isaiah Davis. And if they want to bring in another running back. I know they kind of briefly mentioned that during the combine, like they thought the running back group was very talented. That they can add some piece there too. But yeah, I definitely think they're going to lean heavily on the running game and that establish everything else in terms of the offense.
So without getting into the weeds of all the rest of the signings, because a lot of them have been like Joey said, depth signings, nothing really wowing the fans. I would say, what's your take on the overall group? Because I get the feeling that if they didn't sign Justin Fields, like we'd all have pitchforks as Jet fans at one Jets drive already. So I guess what I'm saying is talk us off the ledge of Jet fans who are used to winning the offseason and why the approach they're taking now should be considered a positive one.
I mean, the last 14, 15 years approach hasn't really worked for you. So I
Yeah,
definitely think, that's the first and foremost. I mean, I'm not saying
that's
this
for
approach
sure.
is going to work, but, insanity is doing the same thing all over and over again, expecting a different result. And, obviously, doing the big money free agents and they have spent money. It just hasn't been, established huge names that I think some Jet fans are used to. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, and this is probably the part that a lot of Jet fans are not going to like. It's probably going to be, not necessarily a great year in terms of win loss record, but I definitely think that, you're going to see, some growth from certain pieces there, whether, whoever they draft. And, you hope that Justin Fields can potentially be that guy starting quarterback. If he's not, then they have an out after 1 year. So I think, it's good to see. I think this year one with Aaron Glenn and Darren Mooch is going to be about that. who's going to be sustain, who's going to last long term with this organization, and the people that play the players that play well, then they'll last with past the 25 season. If they don't, then they'll move on, and they'll add some more talent there because the Heat. I'm sure that he's already on. Like I see the comments on Twitter, I see the comments on social media. Some Jet fans are expecting them to make the playoffs. I don't know if that's really realistic this year. Just simply because they went for it the last couple of years and it didn't work, and you're turning over more than half your roster, and that's very hard to go from a team that won 5 games to one that's completely turned just about your whole roster over, and then make the playoffs in 1 year. Has it been done? Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think that should be the end all be all goal for the Jets this year. The goal should be just to, try to, get to a level where you can maintain that level of success, a consistent level of success for years to come. And, you have to start somewhere, especially when you have a new regime in place.
Would you say out of any of these signings outside of Fields, obviously, because he's kind of been our big ticket, do you see any of them outperforming their expectations, or is there one that, maybe we're not thinking about that will be a little bit more exciting?
I like the Cisco signing too. I mean, I think I know he didn't have a great 24th season, but he's still young enough where he can turn his career around. He 23. Talking with some of the Jaguars reporters, he had a decent season there. If you look at numbers statistically there, and just go look at some of his film, I definitely think obviously the safety position has been a sore spot for the Jets the last few years there, and a lot of fans have really touched on that in a variety of different ways. I don't necessarily need to get into all of that, but I definitely think a guy like Andre Cisco has a lot of skill set pieces that could stay on this team long term. So yeah, I definitely think he's a guy that it may not be a big name signing, but it's a guy that I definitely think could last past year one and maybe get another
As
contract.
long as we
with the
don't go
Jets.
back-to-back safeties in round one and round two, right? So
Well, I don't think you have to worry about
be all right then.
round one, but
Yeah.
maybe round two. I think
Yeah.
they still could take one in round two though.
I wouldn't hate it. Antoine, first of all, I love the Hartford Whalers hat. I'm a Connecticut guy, so I love to see it.
Thank
Um,
you.
I mean, it really feels like they need guys to chew up reps at receiver and defensive tackle. We saw a few like depth pieces at defensive tackle
Yeah.
today, I believe. But I mean, that wide receiver room is terrifying. The wide receiver two right now is technically Alan Lazard. I don't expect him to be on the team next season.
He
Um,
might be. He might be.
is that a real thing?
It's possible. I mean, here's the thing: you don't gain that much by releasing him. And then if you look who's out there with free agents,
Yeah.
in turn like a wide receiver, it's not a lot of good names. So, I mean, you're already paying. I mean, you're overpaying them, but you already gave him estimated guaranteed money anyway. Why not just kick the tires and see what he can do? At least bring him into camp. See what he can. You can cut him at any time and just and gain that cap money back. So it may just be better, at least this particular year. I don't expect him to stay past the 25 season just to kick the tires, see what he can do, see if he can be impactful in this offense without Aaron Rodgers and without Devontae Adams, obviously, on the other side, too. And then just, take it from there. But, yeah, I know a lot of people had their heart set on, like, that's probably not the best term, but a lot of Jets fans don't necessarily felt a certain way about Alan Lazard. But I definitely think it's probably in this case just better off just keeping them to see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes out this offseason with a soccer ball on the practice field, I think we might see some pissed off fans. But is there anybody, is there any kind of like way you see them approaching the rest of free agency, or is it going to kind of be like this bargain shopping? Like you said, they don't have a lot of money, and I think a lot of fans don't understand the fact that they went all in last year
Yes.
because they won 5 games. It doesn't feel like they went all in, but they did, and it just didn't work out. So,
The
do you
last
kind
2
of,
years, really.
yeah? Do you kind of think they're going to continue this bargain shopping, try to see what sticks, and just throw stuff at the wall?
I think so. I think that's kind of what you're gonna lean on, and just rely on the draft to fill some of the holes that you have. I don't know if it's gonna fit. They're gonna fill all the holes draft wise or free agency, but as many as possible. So, but yeah, I have a hard time believing they're just gonna see a free agent unless it's somebody they really, really, truly like, and it's to say, well, we're gonna just pay them X amount of money just to come to the Jets too. And also, it also takes two to tango. A lot of people just say, well, why didn't the Jets get this guy? Why did the Jets get that guy? If you're an established veteran, especially if you're in your 30s, you probably want to go to a team that's contending. And again, like the Jets just aren't there at the moment. So a lot of people like this was 2 years ago, even last year. I think people would thought, okay, the Jets will be an attractive destination with Aaron Rodgers, and we have a chance to make the playoffs and possibly contend for a Super Bowl. Now you don't really have that, so now you're kind of starting over there. I've kind of used the term retool. I know a lot of people talked about rebuilding. However you want to look at it, it's definitely a new regime in there, and they definitely want to do things a different way than what Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh did the last few years.
So moving, I have kind of a two-part question here. First part being, Jets sign offensive line help, Okafor, Myers as well, and I've been seeing this giant movement on Twitter. Like AVT has already, been named the right tackle, which in my mind is ridiculous. I see those guys as backups. I'd like to get your view on that, and then also in terms of another, talk about the trenches. Lions pieces in particular, I think a lot of Jets fans expected there to be a lot more Lions to Jets connections so far. Tim Patrick, I was surprised that Levi on their defensive line went 5.5 million, stayed in Detroit. But where do you feel like will we see some Detroit to Jets moves soon?
To answer your second question, I thought we would see more, but again, like it goes like the two to tango, and some of those guys like Tim Patrick, he likes the situation that he's in, so he may decide, he wanted to stay with Detroit, and who could blame him? I mean, Detroit's been very successful the last few years, so I mean, it's possible, but I think all of us were kind of dotting the I, like kind of doing the dots or whatever, and then trying to figure out like which guy can come to the Jets because of Aaron Glenn and all this stuff. And obviously that has not happened, I think, the way that a lot of people anticipated. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a lot of moves, but it could be some guys that are familiar with either Muji or also Glenn. Both of those connections too, because you have to remember Muji was with Denver for so long too.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely could have some movement there in terms of. What was the question about? Oh yeah, the depth pieces. Yeah, the offensive line. Yeah, I think those guys are just depth pieces. That's all I really think. I think people are just automatically assuming, oh yeah, AVT's moving back to right tackle and all. Joe Tippett was solid. I think the Jets' offensive line as a whole last year, and it makes feel weird to say this, but I thought they were a solid unit. Like really were like as long as Morgan Moses was healthy, and especially after Tyron Smith ended up getting injured, and then Olu ended up inserting into the starting lineup, and I think they really unlocked a lot of keys in that offensive line too. So you look at who they bring back there. I think those four are just set, and then now you're looking at who's going to be the right tackle moving forward in 2025, and I think you have some guys that could be in play there, and also you could look at the draft too as well that could present some options as well. But yeah, those guys are just good depth pieces because you have to look at it. AVT, he played, I think he played in 15 games last year. He's not hasn't been the model of being healthy, throughout the
Yeah.
course of his
Yeah.
career. So you have to plan for just in case that were to happen. And if it does happen, maybe you do move Tip into right guard, and then insert Myers there at
Mm-hmm.
center. So that gives you a lot of different options in order to mess around with the offensive line a little bit.
So that kind of bridges into my last question, which is like we assume, we all agree that there probably another big move isn't on the horizon. But do you think that the moves that they made to date have narrowed down the selection, in the draft with the seventh pick, and given their needs, right, which is it's pretty clear it's right tackle, it's tight end, it's wide receiver, and it's D line, and they have three, let's call it premium picks, right, in 742 and 73, right. So it feels like one of those positions may not be addressed out, completely, right? But I guess my overall question is, what do you think today is the pick at 7?
Oh, if I had to guess, I think I definitely know it's not going to be a quarterback. I know that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I would say I do think, but it does not preclude them from taking a quarterback later on. I do think they may take one, maybe in the third round. So I've mentioned Will Howard a few times too. Kyle McCord from Syracuse, also another guy that I think would be a good guy to kind of bring in there. 7, like my mock draft, I actually had them taking Will Campbell from LSU there. Although they could go number of different options as well. The Missouri right tackle too is also an
Remember?
option there. Yeah, it's number 7. So I think one of those guys also makes sense. if they were to trade down, maybe you look at a guy like a Matthew Golden, from
Yeah.
Texas there. I think, they definitely need some wide receiver help there. I mean, you don't want Garrett to get doubled and triple team on every single play. So you got to definitely got to have somebody that can, command some type of attention on the other side. And I think Golden would be a really good player there. Not necessarily 7, but you look at if you were to trade down, and then Tyler Warren. I mean, if you do stay at 7, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with taking him too. I mean, a lot of people may expect him to be like Brock Bowers last year, but they have a different skill set, but it's not to say one is better than the other. But I think Tyler Warren can give you something in the blocking game, along with what he brings as a receiver too, and he's also very athletic as well.
720.
It's funny because you brought up the developmental quarterback part, right? And I'm like, they have these 3 picks. I don't even know now it's 73 with all the needs that they have. Like, I feel like that 3rd round pick, let's say, it needs to be like a D lineman or a wide receiver or whatever they don't take in round 1 and 2. And I'm hoping that even like a Milrow or a Will Howard, I hope one of those guys falls into round 4 now, because it just feels like the way the free agency's gone that they're really going draft heavy. I mean, again, it's early, but I'm a little bit more in panic mode now in terms of taking that developmental quarterback, like just ride with Fields.
I mean, you could, but we also have to take into account. Well, it's not necessarily about riding with Fields. It's also, again, like he basically has a 1-year deal, and then you have Jordan Travis on the roster. But keep in mind, this regime didn't take him, so and then we don't necessarily know where he is rehab wise and everything like that. They've been saying he's going to have a smooth recovery, but hell, they've been saying that for like almost the last year. So again, like I'm not necessarily sure where he's at in that regard, but it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Just especially in those positions where you're like round 3, round 4. Sometimes I think it's better just you may have a need, but just take the best available player. If you think that player can help you in any kind of way, just take them, and then you can try to figure something else out later, whether it be by trade or whatever the case may be. The best organizations do that. Look at the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens have a history of doing that. They already have a quarterback in place. Hell, they had Joe Flacco, and then they ended up taking Lamar Jackson. And they made other examples of doing that too. So I think people just try to overthink things from time to time. But sometimes if you have a great player that happens to slide down and you're there and he's there when you drafting, just take him. And then just worry about everything else later. You can make some trades in the draft, especially in that range where if you need to get back in the 4th round, it's easier to do that as opposed to, try to gain another pick in the 1st and
Antwan,
2nd.
you've given us so much of your time. We really do appreciate it. Thanks for the insight, and good luck the rest of the way, the rest of this free agency and into the season. But thank you once again.
All right. All right. Thank y'all for having me, man. I appreciate it. Y'all take it easy.
Thanks, Antwan.
And that was Antwan Staley with the Daily News. Just wanted to thank Antwan once again for coming on. That was awesome, chopping it up with us, giving us some insight on the exhilarating free agency period that we've had this past week. But we're going to do something new on this show. Tony usually does AMAs, does them at the bar. But today we wanted to introduce something where we do it on the show and we answer the questions live. So we're going to just hop right into the questions. We'll do a Tony, Pat, Joey order with me resetting with a question. All right? Does that sound good, guys?
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. I'm not even going to waste any time here. Abernathy, Darwin, Dunlap. This is where that question comes from. What brand of soccer ball will Lazard warm up with come game 1 next year? Tone.
I'm going to say Puma.
Pat, do you have anything? You just look stunned.
I hope he's not on the team. Adidas, I guess. I hope he's not on the team.
I'll just say Nike, but that is a funny question. Props for the the hilarious question. Hopefully he's not on the team, but all right, this one comes from Peyton. What happens first, New Jet Stadium or we win a Super Bowl? This is a great question.
This is a great question. I mean, we're locked into the stadium for what, another 10 years? 50, I think. I'm going to say it's a fairly new stadium. I'm gonna say Super Bowl. I think they're going to stay at MetLife for a while. I'm going to go. The Jets are going to be Super Bowl champions before eventually making the move into Queens, like everybody wants them to do.
I've conflicted with this for years about the whole stadium thing, but I do think that they're going to just be in MetLife for a long time. It's not because of the age of the stadium. It's just that their facility is in Florham Park, so I can't see them making a drastic move. I think that's the real in my opinion, what drives them to stay in the MetLife area. So, I mean, I'm praying Super Bowl.
Let's say playoffs first.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that,
let's start there.
that's very ambitious out of Peyton. I'm gonna
I don't
say.
think it's.
Go
Can I
ahead.
say that it won't? Can I say that MetLife will be renovated? Like it'll be
Okay.
a new.
Yeah.
Does that count? Like,
I think that counts. I would
Yeah,
count
I
it.
mean,
I would probably say. Oh my God, this is a really tough question. I would just say I hope we win a Super Bowl. I don't really have a straight answer to that. I like this question too. Over on this comes from Cars Jets. Over under on the amount of times you or accounts like NYJ Matt accounts like that are mentioned in the social media team meetings in the for the Jets.
uh, I mean, I would hope one. I don't think I'm making waves throughout one Jets drive, but it'd be pretty cool, right? I mean, you saw that video they put out a few years ago with some of those content creators slash Twitter users. If they do that again, hey, New York Jets, I'd love to get an invite to that one.
That would make me
I
so
think that
mad.
this is gonna. I think that this is gonna slowly get knocked down more as this new regime comes in. But I'm still of the belief that Lance Newmark is our GM if the Newmark files didn't come out on the Badlands pod. Like I
Oh
really
yeah.
think that there's real influence. Like I think they're watching this shit or they used to be. But I do think it's gonna get weeded out. So old regime probably over under like 10. New regime it's gonna be 0.
I would say two. I think I've had 2.5 as a whole in my head. I think that's a good number. I definitely think there's some mention as long as Woody's in the building and they're doing the Madden ratings crap and all that stuff. So um, I like legitimately love this one. Would you rather get tackled by David Harris or try to tackle Chris Ivory? Great question.
That's tough. What's harder, right? What's harder, trying to break a tackle from David Harris or tackling Chris Ivory? I would say breaking a tackle
But
from David Harris.
that's not really the
I
question.
know.
Okay.
I get it. But um, what would I rather do? I think I'd rather get tackled by David Harris because I can kind of. God, this is the toughest question I think I've ever been asked in my life. I'd rather
think
get
this-
tackled by David Harris. I can just take the shot. I'd get up. Like, dude, Chris Ivory. If I put my head down, I'm paralyzed. I mean, these guys are vicious, dude. Like,
It's a no-brainer. I'd rather get tackled by David Harris because Chris Ivory, if he's running at you, he's running at you with force. And
well, is
he
this
was-
like meeting in the middle? Like, is this just like
Yeah, I mean-
straight?
I'm going under the impression this is like a football play, so or Oklahoma's of some sort. So yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near Chris Ivory. So give me getting tackled. No disrespect to David Harris if you're listening, but
He's
tackle me.
270 pounds,
All right.
6'3".
I'm gonna twist it up and I'm gonna say I'd rather try to tackle Chris Ivory. I'll just go. I'll try to go shoestring tackle. Screw it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'd rather die before doing either of those things, though. So
Yeah, that's very tough. This actually, I know I've been saying awesome question, awesome. This was my personal favorite question out of the bunch because I went through these earlier. What would hurt more, an Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl? This is from Quay or Q. What would hurt more, an Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl run with the Steelers or Zach Wilson becoming a good starter with the Dolphins? I'll hang up and listen.
okay, this is a good one, and I think this is an easy answer for me. I'm wearing an Aaron Rodgers hat right now. I do not hate Aaron Rodgers, despite me wanting him off the team this year. I just didn't think it made sense for the new regime to keep him. I have no hatred for Aaron Rodgers, and it wouldn't bother me at all to see him win for the Steelers. If it were the Giants, this is a different question. That I would despise. If he goes to the Giants, I hope he stinks it up and they suffer the same fate that we did. For this specific question, though, Zach Wilson. It's Zach Wilson. I mean, the kid borderline quit on the team at one point with that concussion stuff. He just it would sting. Sam Darnold being a good quarterback. I like Sam Darnold. He's a good dude. Like he deserved all that money. Zach Wilson, man, he does not give off the same vibes. I'm sure he's a great guy, but man, it would really suck to see him become a quarterback for a division rival. That would sting pretty bad.
I'm going down the rabbit hole right now of all these scenarios because if Zach was hypothetically a good starter for the Dolphins, he's young, which means that they'd have some sort of conundrum, or he could be around for a while, right? It's in our division. That would be really frustrating. but then they'd also have the Tua problem, right? So that's an interesting one to think about. I'm still going with Rodgers though because it's just so fresh, and I really was so emotionally invested in the Rodgers tenure that if he was to just come out right out the gate this year, or within the next, let's call it, year or two, right, because he's not playing that much longer, and win it with them, it would be a really tough pill to swallow to be like, because we made the decision to get rid of him. Same thing with Zach, obviously, but we made the decision to get rid of Aaron. Like, that was like the first thing of the offseason, and it really tore the fan base in half for the most part. I mean, a lot of pragmatic Jet fans realized it was, ultimately the route to go, but that would be really tough if he immediately won a Super Bowl this year with the Steelers. I'd rather deal with Zach being good and it was screwing the Dolphins quarterback plans up.
Yeah, I think
the media, if Aaron Rodgers leaves and wins a Super Bowl, holy
Tony,
shit.
that's exactly where I was going. That's why I'm picking Rodgers, is because just the, LOL Jets, thing just continues to roll on with butt fumble to everything that happens to us. That would be like, oh, the Jets tried it, and then he goes to the Steelers and automatically wins a Super Bowl like it's nothing. I'd much rather just like bank on playing Zach, who I know probably wouldn't consistently pan out. But moving on here, this one is objectively the funniest one. Would you rather fight one Michael Clemens-sized chicken or 100 chicken-sized Michael Clemens?
Okay. I don't know. Like, would you just stomp on? No, they're chickens. Chickens aren't that small. I'm
They're
going with
muscular
one-
chickens too. They're
And also
muscular.
they're Michael
Yeah, well,
Clemens.
they're Michael Clemens. I think I have to go with the Michael Clemens sized chicken. I think I punch you right in the neck and hope I like do some damage there. Dude, a bunch of little Michael Clemens would crawl up. We saw him completely dive on the that clip of him diving on the pile was one of the worst football plays of all time. And I'm imagining 100 of them, of little chicken-sized Michael Clemens, doing that to myself. I'd rather take my chances with one target. I could just square up and give it my best shot. That's what I would go.
So, like, I'm just trying to size myself up, right? So, like, Michael Clemens is listed at 6'5", 260.
That's ginormous.
I'm like 6'1", 250. So I'm taking my chances against, like, sizing myself up against one chicken, and I can outsmart the chicken rather than 100 Michael Clemens coming at me, regardless of size.
I'm gonna take the 100 Michael Clemens chickens because I just know what would happen. I would be like, I could do this, and then I would be face to face with this big chicken and be like, what the hell did you possibly think this was a good idea for? And I would get knocked out in 2 seconds.
It has no arms, though. What is it going to do? Kick you? I don't know how it would kill you. I don't know.
I don't want to find out. I'll leave it at that. Next question comes from Jets West. Love you, Jets West. Would you rather have Michael Clemens start... Staying on the Michael Clemens train. Would you rather have Michael Clemens start the entire season or Carter Warren start the entire season?
Oh, my God. That's the hardest one yet. Oh, God. What makes less of an impact, right? I feel like if Carter Warren started the entire season at right tackle, we would know instantly. And same goes for Michael Clemens, though. I mean, the guy gets cooked on every read option on his side of the ball. So I would have to say Michael Clemens. I feel like you could hide him a little bit better. Put him next to Quinn and throw him on the inside. You'd probably get wrecked in the running game. But, I mean, dude, if your right tackle is Carter Warren, you're playing guys like Myles Garrett. He would just line up against Carter Warren and blow by him every time, and Justin Fields would be running for his life. I would have to go with Michael Clemens.
There's no hiding Michael Clemens, we've learned.
He's inevitable.
He's inevitable. I think that I would go with Carter Warren because I think that the unit is better to support Carter Warren. You could throw a swing, could throw a tight end on that side. You could throw a swing tackle on that side. And because we saw, this question was answered for us to a degree. We saw what happens when Michael Clemens starts an entire season. They run the ball right at him, and he just lets up huge runs, and it's terrible. It's a terrible product. So I'd rather have the unknown. At least I can come up with a scenario in my head where, all right, if Carter Warren starts, we could do, the rest of the line is good, and we can, draft Tyler Warren and The Warren guys are
His
gonna
brother.
sit there. Yeah,
Warren
exactly. The
brothers.
Warren guys are gonna be on the right side and and figure it out, right? So, yeah, I anything with Michael Clemens more extended playing time at this point is just I've had enough. I'm gonna see 100 Michael Clemens chickens in my sleep tonight, anyways. But
That's what I was thinking. Like as I'm thinking through, I'm like, okay, Carter Warren at right tackle, but then like thinking of this giant chicken on the defensive line. But I'm probably gonna go with Michael. I'm probably gonna go with Michael Clemens here. Um, I agree with Tony. Like I just think that the hole on the right side would be way too big and it'd be tough to come back from, especially if you're going up against edge guys like Myles Garrett. All right, last one here comes from a good friend of the show, Slick Rick. Slick Rick Scoops. He's legit. He's very legit.
No doubt.
And he's the boy. So he was very, very nice here and asked a question. Should MetLife Stadium get rid of urinals in favor of piss troughs?
Yes.
Hashtag bring them back. If you don't know what a trough is, it's essentially just a giant tub where you pee into, and not in like protected urinals with siding on them.
Yeah.
So, Tony?
I mean, listen, I love being with my people, and what better way than zero privacy in the bathroom, just sitting there pissing drunk. Like, I mean, I say bring back the troughs. I'm all for that. I don't need. There's nothing. We're all one unit, man. There's nothing to hide. Let's just get it going and have a nice big Jets community piss.
somebody brought up if you look in the comments for Slick Rick's question, because people are just asking scoop questions, but somebody wrote, depends. Are they going to give out free large Pepsis instead of medium Pepsis? If so, we will need the troughs. Yeah, bring back the troughs, man. Let's get rowdy. Let's make it like old Giant Stadium where people were kicking the shit out of each other in the parking lot and all that. So why not? MetLife needs a little bit more character, anyways. Let's say bring the troughs back.
I'm gonna say urinals just for the sole fact I just do not want to be like, I don't know what's gonna happen in there. You're at a Jets Bills game and all of a sudden a Bills fan gets pissed off at you and he just starts pissing on you. Like I don't want to come out of there drenched in piss. Like I'm just gonna leave it straight up. The trough sounds like a cool idea. We all know what that would turn into though. But do appreciate the question. That's there's some questions on here that I legitimately can't read, and that's the last one that I'm asking. So
someone asked for my cell phone number. I will not be giving that one now.
Yeah, but if you want, I'll give a Tony cell phone number out for $100 if you want to DM me for that. So
I got one more here. I'm gonna make it PG rated, but shout out Lamato. We'll do start bench cut.
That's right. I meant to go back to that one.
Start bench cut. Luke Falk, Tim Boyle, Brooks Bollinger.
Oh, Brooks Bollinger was what era?
He was like,
I forget.
He was before your guys' time. He was a little bit more like when I was like a kid. Probably like in the 05.
03 to 05. That's what it says.
Oh, yeah. I remember I actually went to a game where he started, and it was I'm pretty sure it was against Marcus Tuiasosopo against the Raiders. I'm like pretty sure, and I'm going to look that up to be double checked, but it was like one of those things where I just remember where I was a kid, and I was like, what the hell am I watching right now?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, God, this is quite the question. I'm going to say Luke Falk was terrible. I'm going to kill Tim Boyle. I think he was a rat. But what? Me and Pat tailgated with his parents. They were very nice people. He's a Connecticut guy. He went to Xavier. I'm gonna kiss Tim Boyle. I'm going to kill Luke Falk. He did nothing for me. And I'm going to marry Brooks Bollinger just because I know how much these other two guys suck, and he's a little bit before my time. Maybe he could sling the rock around. Who knows? So yeah, ultimately I think that's my answer. I'm kissing Tim Boyle. Apparently, it's wild to say.
So I did look it up. He won this game in 2005 against the Raiders, 26-10.
Mary.
So I don't think Tim Boyle or Luke Falk won anything, right, with us. Yep. So I'm starting Brooks. I'm benching Tim Boyle. Yeah. I'm benching Tim Boyle. And I'm cutting Luke Falk because I hate Luke Falk, and I'll tell you why. I went up to Boston one time to go visit my friends, and I made them all go to... This was this the Darnold Mono, or was this the when did Luke Falk start? It was the Darnold mono, right? And then Simeon came in and broke his leg, and then
Yeah,
Falk
against
had
the
to start,
Broncos.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I went up to Boston to see my friends, and I made them all go to the Jets bar there, which is like Hurricanes or something like that by TD Garden. And we literally, all my Patriot fans friends went with me to watch Luke Falk start, and it was the worst experience of my life. So I'm done with Luke Falk. So cut his ass.
I love how this was also like Pat's like, I want to make a PG, start bench cut, and Tony's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna kiss Tim Boyle.
I'm just out here kissing guys.
No
at this
beers.
Point.
No beers.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm actually boringly enough, we'll go with the same lineup as Pat. So I'll start Brooks because he won that game. I will bench Luke Falk and I will cut Tim Boyle just because I cannot stand the fact that he was essentially like, I don't really think that guy should have even had a job. And he was on the roster.
Does.
So
Still does have a job somehow. He's bouncing around. And who are you kissing, Joey? Trevor Simeon? You got to kiss somebody.
Yeah, and kissing Simeon, sure, whatever. That's just wild. I mean, Pat literally prefaced it by saying, start bench cut, and you were like,
it's so funny, man. This bucket of quarterbacks that we've seen starts: David Fales, Trevor Simeon, Luke Falk. A couple of my buddies have like jerseys for these guys, and it makes me generally wonder like if they're mentally sick in the head or what. But I mean, there's just been some rough goes, and it feels good to have Justin Fields right now, as crazy as that sounds.
yes, no, for sure.
But it's bad when the second week of free agency. I mean, the first week of free agency, but like the second day or whatever, we're talking about Brooks Bollinger.
You're right.
So
no, it's true. I mean, it was
so
put on to us by someone else, but yes, it's still, the point stands. It's a Jets fan talking about Brooks Bollinger. I hope you guys really did enjoy this. This was a really fun episode. We gave draft grades. We just did the questions. We had the Staley interview, which was awesome. But we just want to thank you guys for listening. We're very early on in our podcasting careers here. So go give us a follow on the podcast Twitter at NYJ_VulturesRow. Go follow the Patreon. Go follow the YouTube. Still working to get that Apple link up. Apple sucks right now for me. But I just want to thank you. So any closing thoughts from you guys before I sign off?
Hopefully a little bit more excitement in the next coming days, but I'm really hoping for those extensions to come out, and that'll ease everybody's. I think that'll be the one thing that can ease the fans' minds a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for listening, and we will catch you at next week some point. And as always, go Jets. Peace.